One thing which I've really learned from my career and that stuck with me is try not to overinvest emotionally into
Right.
things that I can't control. About not giving the emotions as much power to control how you're feeling about your job. It can get very easy to get hung up on where is the work being done, how is the work being done, and sort of tie yourself up in knots.
Yeah.
And the biggest piece of advice for me is actually just look at the output.
Perfect.
So, what's effective for your organization? And that's where you go. So, retention has been a challenge. Again, one of the main ways we're approaching it is ensuring that we're communicating our culture
Right.
in an effective manner. I think that's one element where HR in general could probably get a little bit better is actually marketing what you're doing. So, I think it's going to be that combination, that really interesting juxtaposition of embracing the technology, becoming a facilitator, but then looking and finding for those moments where the human element comes through. And it's such a healthy reminder to focus on the people, focus on how if you are leading by thinking about impact on how it's going to impact your employees, how is it going to impact your customers,
Yeah.
having that overlay of the human element, I think, is great.
Welcome to HR Live Lounge, where you get to meet with some of the most inspirational human resources leaders and talent acquisition specialists on the planet. And now, here's your host, Roy Ripper.
Hey, this is Roy Ripper, and you're listening to the HR Live Lounge podcast, the show exclusively for HR and talent acquisition leaders just like you, where we explore the biggest challenges that you're facing right now on your desk today. And we're also going to be looking at some really effective strategies that other people are using in their businesses that maybe you could implement into yours. Now, today, we're going to be talking about staff retention with our special guest, Marian Chaney. Now, Marian is the HR director at a company called Julius Rutherfoord, and they are one of the largest secure commercial cleaning companies in London, employing over 1,300 employees. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about everything that you need to know about retaining our workforce. Stay tuned right to the end and discover how Marian and her team successfully reduced their staff turnover by over 30%, and how you might be able to do exactly the same by focusing in on just one thing this year. You're also going to learn from Marian a really key strategy to protect your own mental health as a HR stroke talent leader. So look, loads we're going to cover today. So stay tuned. Welcome everybody to another episode of HR Live Lounge. And I've got a great episode for you today. We have got the absolute pleasure of having Marian Chaney in the room. So first things first, welcome Marian.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And listen, we're really, really stoked to have you on the show today. Marian, for people that don't know you, could you just give us a brief outline of your career today? Tell us about you and something about your current role.
So, Marian Chaney, HR director at Julius Rutherfoord. I started my career in HR with a master's degree, so dove straight in. And from there, I then went to Swale Heating, and I was there for around 4.5 years. That was a wonderful place to learn. It's a fantastic company, smaller size. So I was able to really touch all aspects of HR and, roll up my sleeves and get into the thick of it. And what was great is then going through certain projects and seeing the value that HR can bring. And so that was that first experience of yes, this is definitely something that I love to do.
Brilliant.
So yeah, so for there 4.5 years, and then now I am at Julius Rutherfoord, and Julius Rutherfoord provides secure commercial cleaning within London. Some of the clients are, we've got private schools, we have a few museums, which are great, and then also offices as well. So quite a varied portfolio. And I've been there now 2.5 years, and I am HR director. It's a generalist department again. So, looking at lots of different aspects. It's a very multicultural company as well, which I absolutely love. So only am I executing on HR strategy, but also maneuvering different languages, different cultures, and I really, really love it.
Fantastic. And how many, we've been talking about this before, but how many people are you responsible for at Julius Rutherfoord?
So the workforce is around 1,300, and that's a distributed workforce, which poses its own challenges. And then my team is a wonderful team of 5 individuals.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you. One of the questions that just came up for me as you were speaking, Marian, was the museums thing, because I'm always fascinated by museums, and as dad to 4 kids, I remember many summers going up to the Natural History Museum. I'm not sure if that's one that you guys are contracted to do, but that must be an enormous cleaning project. Does it ever get done?
I mean, on the one hand, yes, but on the one hand, no, right? We have a great group of cleaners. They do their utmost. But no, absolutely. Foot traffic, different events that come up. It really is a complex and really fascinating industry to work in. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. And Marian, look, one question that I know people will be asking, they'll hear your accent, but you're in the UK and your workforce and your client contracts are around London. How have you ended up in the UK?
Yeah, good question. So my bachelor's degree was international media and communication.
Okay.
And with that, there was a requirement to do a study abroad program. So that's where I then came to the UK many, many years ago, and then met my now husband. And so when I came over, I've been over since 2015. So it was that combination of career and love, which I came over for. So yes, no, I'm originally from California. So yeah, different climate.
I can only imagine. But look, on behalf of the UK, I'm just really pleased that love won the game. It's sort of we're here, and career as well. But we love a good love story. So Marian, one of the first questions I want to ask you is, what's your favorite success quote, and how do you apply that to your everyday life or your work life? How do you apply that?
Yeah, I love that question. For me, it's a very simple one, and it goes one day or day one. And to me, what that means is that your success is in your control.
Yeah.
And I also love, if you look at it visually, I just love it that all it is, it's just the order of the words is different, but the meaning is transformatively different. So how I apply it in my life, also just in my career, is that idea of tomorrow or today could be day one.
Yeah.
That's it. And that you do have that, that mental ability to back yourself and decide today's going to be day one. So it's one that's stuck with me. And I really love that it represents that we all have potential and we all have the power to change our lives.
Yeah. I love that. I really do, because it is that thing that whatever's gone on before, it's like today is a new day. And actually you can start writing the future from this moment, right? This moment on. And I really, really like that. In managing big groups of people and training, sort of leaders within organizations, it's a similar thing that I teach, that, don't just think about cumulatively, oh, I had a disaster of the day yesterday and that's put me down in terms of my target or my objectives or whatever. What can you affect in this day, in this moment? So I really
Correct.
like that
Yeah.
quote. I hadn't heard that expressed in the way that you did. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm going to look that one up straight after our
Good.
interview. So look, a question that I want to ask you is, what's the biggest lesson that you've got from your career, and particularly where you faced a challenge and then got that eureka moment? It's like, oh, okay, now I understand this. Now I can move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, really, I really love the thought-provoking element of this question because it really poses some reflection. One thing which I've really learned from my career, and that stuck with me, is try not to overinvest emotionally into
Right.
things that I can't control.
Nice.
So the situation where the penny dropped was actually at Swell Heating, and it was a to-be transfer. So we had unfortunately lost a contract.
Right.
There were employees assigned to that contract, and then there was a new employer, and then so those 20 employees should be transferring over, protection of their employment terms and conditions, and fine. So I was leading on that one, and the new employer, they were disputing the fact that to be applied.
Right.
And I was becoming very stressed, probably a little bit too involved, really taking on the livelihood of these 20 people almost as my own responsibility.
Right.
And it then just hit me. I think it was, probably after 2 weeks of just way too much stress. And it was the eureka moment of, no, someone in a different organization has just decided that this is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So I could be absolutely fantastic at my job. I could do everything correct and, still do that, still put in the effort.
Yeah.
But really have the opportunity to look after myself and not overinvest. And I think within HR as a career as well, that's very important for the longevity, for the sustainability of you as a person, because this job is hard, and it's not to say don't care. Absolutely.
No.
So passionate about things, care about things. But it's been that lesson and something I've now really carried with me into almost every single situation is, okay, let me be aware of how much I can control.
Yeah.
And if I can't control that much, try not to overinvest emotionally, and then take care of yourself, take care of your mental health. And it also helps then to make better business decisions if you're looking at it from not that really emotional and stressed place.
It's
That's definitely been one.
Yeah. Listen, that's so true, because it's hard not to get emotionally involved, and feel it, particularly with the role and function that you and other leaders, sort of get involved in, because you're dealing with people. But it is that thing of understanding this is a fire that's been created by somebody else. I'm just trying to do the best that I can do. And I also think we as business leaders rely on people like you for that clarity, that sort of, being able to make a decision that's based on knowledge and facts as opposed to pure emotion. And that's a big one. I would find it hard. I would feel the outrage, I would feel the sorrow, I would feel the anger, but that's not going to get us anywhere. It's really, really important that you get that clarity. And as you said, looking after our own mental well-being, because if we get sick, or our judgments get distorted or distracted, then we're not doing the job that we're very, very good at when we're allowed to do that job. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing that. It is that eureka moment though, isn't it? Can you imagine if you hadn't had that and you just kept going on that trajectory? It wouldn't have gone very good for you.
would have been looking for a 5-month sabbatical. Need to have a break. But yeah, and it is that thing of, you're still aware of the feelings, you still go through the emotions, but it's about not giving the emotions as much power to control how you're feeling about your job. It's taking on the emotion and then understanding which one is actually going to help you get through the situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So look, what's the biggest challenge that you face in your role right now at Julius Rutherfoord? And how are you guys going about tackling that challenge?
I'm going to say two because there's one which is a constant ongoing challenge. One is retention. That is a key one. So that is a challenge, ensuring we're retaining our employees, especially in a very competitive industry. The one that's ongoing is ensuring that a workforce, which is entirely distributed, still feels like one team.
Right.
And that's been something that I've been tackling with the leadership team since I've joined. The large majority of our employees are spread around in different parts of London, different sites.
Yeah.
And so being able to unify everyone is quite a challenge. So the way we've been going about it is looking at different benefit offerings that we can do. The other element is really focusing on culture and
Right.
how we create a culture which is unified.
Yeah.
And it's something we're continually working on. We did get a spot in the top 50 inspiring workplaces EMEA 2023 in May this year. Absolutely. And those moments are really, really useful, right? It's that,
Yeah.
it's that phrase that, constructive feedback is helpful, but positive feedback is also very helpful.
Yeah.
And so that was a really good positive feedback moment for us. So we're
Validation.
completely.
Yeah.
So we're continuing to tackle from the cultural perspective, and then ensuring, for me, ensuring then those HR policies and procedures are aligned with the culture and the unification that we're looking for.
Very good. I know you've got a second one, but just before you move on to that, Marian, I know when we've spoken, there was a really impressive stat that you gave me or that I read about that employee retention piece. I've got to, sort of wanted to ask you what that stat was, and I've got another question I wanted to ask you, but what was the stat?
Yeah, by reducing employee turnover by 30%, which is quite outstanding. It's been a lot of hard work, and I think shout out to my team and the leadership team, where we've really put in a huge effort to ensure that we're all pulling in the same direction, and it's been very rewarding to see that as far as results and as far as data come through. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Again, validation on that. Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's really, really good. And I mean, that's an impressive stat just on its own, but I know that you guys are doing some incredible work there. And look, this is interesting, I think, for people watching the show or listening to the podcast, this thing about workforces being distributed. I think post-lockdown, a lot of companies are having to deal with this whole hybrid versus being office-based dilemma. But Julius Rutherfoord, it seems to me like we were always like that. We always had this kind of distributed workforce. So you're doing stuff that a lot of HR leaders are having to deal with right now. Is there any massive takeaway that you can give them that would help them?
My advice would be really focus on the output of what's being achieved.
Right.
It can get very easy to get hung up on where is the work being done, how is the work being done, and sort of tie yourself up in knots.
Yeah.
And the biggest piece of advice for me is actually just look at the output. So what's effective for your organization, and that's where you go.
Fantastic. Listen, great advice. Now, look, I interrupted you. There was a second thing second challenge that you guys are facing. What was that?
Yeah, you're letting me answer give two answers. Thanks. So as I said, the retention piece. So that's one which started actually with Brexit, really changed the labor market and the workforce that we were able to get. So retention has been a challenge again, one of the main ways we're approaching it is ensuring that we're communicating our culture
Right.
in an effective manner. I think that's one element where HR in general could probably get a little bit better, is actually marketing what you're doing. Those marketing skills, internal
Absolutely.
communication, external communication, then that's been key. So that type of communication about what we're already offering, what we're already doing well.
Yeah.
And we do that with focus groups. We'll do that with, we have a company blog, so that we try and approach the communication in many different ways.
That's really something quite good, because I know one of the challenges, not only in companies your size, but larger companies, smaller companies, particularly larger companies, there's a disconnect between what human resources function knows and what the
Mm-hmm.
marketing or
Yeah.
external comms people put out.
Mm-hmm.
How have you guys bridged that gap? It's like, how have you got that synergy between your two departments?
We have and that this will work for some organizations, not for others. We
Appreciate.
do have an open plan office, so I can look over to my shoulder and see our marketing manager, which makes me go, yes, okay, I must tell her about XYZ. But also, it's a lot of the systems, so the software systems that we're using. It's using elements that are dynamic, so they're not static. So it's easy for someone to go in and then update something, and then marketing also will have access to that document. So
Good.
it's that combination, and so far we're doing it all right. So we need to keep it up.
It's interesting, isn't it? So figuratively, rip down any walls between you, and even if it is a large company, it's like, it's constant
Yeah,
communication, I think, is
yeah.
the key takeaway there. So look, I love that, and thank you for sharing those challenges with us. I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball, Marian, and look into that crystal ball. And how do you see talent acquisition and employee retention developing over the next, say, 5 years?
I see the ability to be a facilitator becoming more and more important. So as technology and artificial intelligence, everything is coming to the forefront.
Yeah.
I really see the function of HR and talent acquisition as a key facilitator
Right.
in that. But then I think to overlay it and actually juxtapose the technology, I really see the human element as becoming more and more important.
Yeah.
So as talent acquisition becomes more and more automated,
Yeah.
I really think then those moments of human interaction and a human decision at the end of the day. So as much as we want to be objective about everything,
Sure.
there are times where subjectivity is very important.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be that combination, that really interesting juxtaposition of embracing the technology, becoming a facilitator, but then looking and finding for those moments where the human element comes through. And I think that's going to be incredibly important. And I think that's where, seeing those two work together, I think in the next 5 years or so would be one of my predictions.
Good. Okay. And listen, we'll come back to you in 5 years and see that that's come true. I
Yeah.
agree with you. Look, I speak with so many people that say, AI is going to be the death of us and it's going to really kill off any human interaction. I believe, like you, that human interaction then becomes more important.
I completely agree.
And if the tech helps speed up that process or streamline that process in order for us to gain more human interaction, then, great. Like you, I'm embracing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working out how I can use AI to, sort of enhance that relationship with the people that I speak with.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Well, listen, thank you for that. So look, Marian, I'm really interested to know who in your world, who in your or our industry do you particularly admire and that perhaps want to give a shout out to?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it necessarily be someone in our industry, but I have always really admired the work of it's Angela Ahrendts.
Okay.
She headed up Burberry for I think 5 years, and then she was the senior vice president at Apple as well.
Okay.
And she has blended beautifully the commerciality of business, but then the human aspect.
Right.
So she doesn't have the title of HR, but for me, she's a wonderful representation of the HR elements
Right.
that come into making a business successful. So she's not afraid to say she'll lead with the heart. So she brings in all these human elements,
Yeah.
and yet she's led these juggernauts from different industries, and I love that, and I think it's great, and it's such a healthy reminder to focus on the people, focus on how, if you are leading by thinking about impact on how it's going to impact your employees, how is it going to impact your customers,
Yeah.
having that overlay of the human element, I think is great. So she's someone that I've looked and watched a little bit. So if you're interested, recommend just putting in the name, and yeah, she's great. Wonderful insight to listen to.
We'll feature a link to her profile or her work or whatever down in the show notes. So we'll put that in for people. I love the fact that you've actually picked somebody outside of our industry, because often when I'm asking that question, people are racking their brains to think about somebody in the HR world. But actually, there's a lot of people out there that sort of are inspiring, that can maybe teach us something about the work that we do, but not necessarily, be in that world. They're in a, sort of related world. And the interesting thing for me with that story that reference is that Burberry were in fact a client of mine 100 years ago. But,
lovely.
But I love them as a company. I love what they were trying to achieve, but I definitely will look out for Angela's. It was Angela, wasn't it?
Yes, that's
Angela's
right.
work. Okay.
Yeah.
So look, very sadly, Marian, we're coming to the end of our time together, and it's like time really just flies past.
It's gone very quickly.
It has gone really, really quickly. But how can what's the best way for people to connect with you, get in contact with you after the show?
Yeah, LinkedIn, best way. So yeah, you'll be able to find my profile. I'm there. Please connect with me, send me a message. Always happy to discuss different elements, different things that people are working on. So yeah, please feel free, reach out and connect.
Fantastic. Marian, I can't thank you enough. It's been great speaking with you. I always approach these things from a point of curiosity, because I don't know everything, and I don't know necessarily your world. I come from a slightly different world, as you may know. But it's really lovely to speak with somebody that is passionate about what they do, and that's every interaction that I've had with you. That passion just shines through. So thank you for that. And for sharing, it's like sharing your experiences. So really, really appreciate you being on the show. For anyone wanting to get in touch with Marian, all of the links will be in the show notes below this, wherever you're consuming it. If it's video, it'll be below the video. If it's an audio podcast on your podcast platforms, it will be there in the show note. And all of the other references that Marian's made in today's episode. Marian, final thing, I just wanted to thank you and bless you for agreeing to be part of the show today, and look forward to...
Thank you for having me. Yes, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the HR Live Lounge podcast with your host, Roy Ripper. Be sure to visit royripper.com to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content.